Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast, Paranormal Talk with Heart and Soul. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast, YouTube, and any place you find your favorite podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And my dear Haunted Hearts, welcome tonight. We're joined once again by Rodney Williamson Sr. of the Blackfeet Nation as we journey into one of the most intriguing and lesser-known mysteries, Four-Horn Lake, steep in indigenous history, unexplained encounters, and generations of oral tradition. This mysterious location has captivated those who've experienced its strange phenomena. Join us with Rodney, shares the stories, legends, and insights surrounding Four-Horn Lake, where the line between the natural and the supernatural becomes remarkably thin. So this is another segment of Beyond the Firelight. Hello, Rod.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. You're tripping over my tongue there again. Jeez, I really can read. I really can. So welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a break, but here we are again.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another reason why we didn't actually choose specifics. Like if we're going to have the Beyond the Firelight segments every 2 weeks or every month, we're just going to, whenever we can record it, we'll do it, because I know you're busy because you work too much. You need a break. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, when you mentioned Four-Horn Lake, I've never heard of it before, so I'm really, really interested in hearing more about it. So the stage is yours, my brother.
Yeah, so Four-Horn Lake is it's a place on our reservation, one of many places that has a lot of history, strange things that have happened and still happen there today. How it looks is there's hills on either side of it, and it's kind of set in the middle there. And you head out to the south, there's a place called Blacktail on that side, and where you come in at is actually at the north. There's a road that comes in from a place called Old Agency. There's a dirt road that leads out to it, gravel road. And anyways, people go there for, they go out there to just sit around, fish, things like that. But my wife's family and them, they live right over the ridge, on the other side of the ridge from this place, and that's where their land has always been. It's in their family. That's their family land, and their land borders parts of the lake. There's a cross-country horse race that happens there too, where...
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you start over by where you first come in on the highway, and they take off and they're riding. It's an Indian relay race, so there's 4 horses, so 3 exchanges. They start out and they ride, and they get to that lake, and they actually swim part of that lake with the horses. And then once they're on the other side, there's another exchange and another exchange. It usually ends up at the powwow grounds up in Hart Butte. So what is that about? Oh, geez, I don't know, 5 miles, something like that. It's a pretty intense race. But so there's some recreation and things like that happen out there yet. But my wife's family and them, well, my wife in particular, I asked her, will you go out on that lake on a boat? And she's like, oh no, I don't think I would. She said, if it's a big enough boat, maybe. I said, would you go out on those little hip waders and the little flotation on it? Like,
yeah.
No. They're kind of scared of that lake, because of all the things that have happened around there, all the strange things. Well, I mean, I guess we could just kind of go from the old stories up to the present time.
Yeah, please.
Some of the old stories, they all come from my wife's family. And the one that her father-in-law, my father-in-law, her dad talked about was when his dad was younger, he went out to the lake and it was starting to rain. And his dad told him, don't go out there, not when it's getting ready to rain. Like, you won't make it back before it starts raining. He says, no, I'll be all right, young. So he takes off, and when he gets out there, he gets caught in that storm. Well, it was kind of bad, and there was lightning and stuff like that, so he was kind of getting scared. He kind of caught himself in a tough spot there. Well, he ended up taking his horse and standing like there was like this kind of like an outcrop, and he was trying to suck up underneath of it. And that's how he was standing, just holding his horse and gonna wait out the storm. And he heard singing, in the distance, and he kind of looked, and because it was blowing and everything, and the sound travels funny like that. And he finally zeroed in on where the sound was. There was a man. He was standing out there, and he had a hand drum. He was all dressed in buckskin, white buckskin. And he was singing. That was the singing that he heard. And I guess every time he would hit his hand drum, it would just lightning, thunder,
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, while he was singing.
Yeah.
So anyways, he watched him, and finally that storm started settling down, and that man just disappeared. He didn't see where he went, how he disappeared, or anything. He was just all of a sudden gone when he put his eyes back on him, and so he rides back to the ranch, and he's telling his dad about what happened. And he said, "See, I told you, don't go out there. There's always something like that." He said, well, anyways, they all think it was a thunder being that he seen that day out at the lake. And so another strange one was, I guess we're not going too much in chronological order. So before this, I want to say it was his grandpa. So it would be my wife's great grandpa. He was out there. He went out on horseback, and this was a long time ago. He had a bow. It must have been in the beginning of the reservation days. 1865 was when we were in the present area we are today. Mm-hmm. And it took that long to get us pushed back. And anyways, so it must have been around sometime like that, like those early reservation days, or even later, maybe even early 1900s, late 1800s, somewhere's in there. At this time, there was no roads to this lake, nothing like that. And so he rode out by himself on horseback, and he was hunting, and he just had a bow, and so he goes up over the lake. You can go on one side and kind of look down and see the lake. And then there's another side where the hills wrap around. Well, that's where he was looking, kind of looking down like that. And he had seen these antelope on the other side of that lake. So he thought he would kind of sneak around there and get closer to him. And he had his horse kind of picketed so it didn't, peek its head up and spook whatever's there. And he crawled up. And as he was crawling up, he seen those antelope. Oh, they took off. They took off running, and he was wondering what that was. So he crawled up further. He was just peeking over that ridge, and he was looking down there. And the way he described it, my father-in-law, because this story was passed down to them, so what he saw was, he said it looked like a giant caterpillar. Is the only way he could describe it. It was huge, like sizable.
I mean, I take it you mean the creature and not the machine?
Yeah. And it was, whatever it was, it spooked those antelope. And I guess he watched it, and it kind of moved funny, like kind of how those caterpillars move. It's kind of moved funny, and it went up that hill a little bit, and spooked those antelope, and then it just went down, and it went into that water, and he didn't see it after that. It was just gone. So they talk about these lake monsters, different places. There's one across the mountains, that Flathead Lake supposedly, has something like that. But I don't really know. When I asked my father-in-law about it, I said, well, did he say what color it was? He said, no, I don't remember him ever talking what color it was, or, anything like that, any specific details other than it moved like a caterpillar and went back into the water. But when I think about those, I think they're sweetapes myself, but, I could be wrong.
You think they're what?
Water spirits.
Oh, okay. What did you call them?
Sweetapes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to attempt to try and say that. I'll just butcher it.
Yeah, it could be something like that. I'm not too sure. But so yeah, those two stand out to me, as well as my grandpa. Owl Child, he had a house right next to that. This old four horn, I don't know when the name changed, but it used to be called Owl Child Lake. And
Really?
yeah, my grandpa, he lived out there. You know,
Hmm.
that's from my mom's side. You follow that back and it leads to Owl Child. And anyways, Owl Child had there was a lot of stuff that went on with that guy, you know. I guess just a little bit of backstory. So here's this thing called the Baker Massacre. It was one of those tough things in history where the cavalry rode down on men, women, children, and old people in a camp. All the warriors were out hunting. It was one of those tragedy type stories. And of course, all the cavalry were all drunk, you know, and
Yep.
things like that. So they had a scout. He was telling them this isn't the band that you get the wrong band. They didn't care. They just went in and tried to wipe them all out. Well, how that all started was Owl Child's sister-in-law, his wife's sister. She married a non-native. His name was Malcolm Clark, and they lived in Helena, Montana, which is the capital of Montana. And he was one of these well-to-do kind of aristocratic type people, rancher, like that. Well, his sister-in-law was sending back messages, like they'd go down and visit and everything. Well, she started telling them, word got back to Owl Child that, well, he was raping her, doing things to her like that. And that kind of, didn't sit well with him. So he rode all the way down there and shot him dead right in his own house.
Wow.
Owl Child did that, and then he went back up to the res. Well, his dad was a man named Mountain Chief, and Mountain Chief didn't surrender. His band was still hostile, toward the government. He didn't surrender. Well, Heavy Runner, he was one had a peace medallion and stuff. His band was one of the ones that was kind of peaceful, wouldn't attack. Had agreements with them and everything. Well, not Mountain Chief. Well, anyways, when Owl Child went back, he joined up with his dad's band again, and they took off. They moved camp. It was kind of like toward the winter, and they moved because they knew the cavalry would be coming. Well, Heavy Runner and them were kind of having it hard that winter, and they were moving further down south. And geez, they come upon this perfect camp spot. Everything, the circles and the snow were already there. They didn't have to clear no snow. Yeah, everything was set, so they just moved into that area. Well, by the time Baker got there, and his scout was telling him this is the wrong band, that this isn't Mountain Chief, this is Heavy Runner. Heavy Runner come out and told him, hey, this is peaceful, showing them that medal and everything, and they just gunned them all down. By the time they got there, the men, they had already left. They went out to go hunt, so there weren't even any warriors there. And, they did this because the president, the governor of Montana, everybody was saying, go get them. And so anyways, Owl Child has that place in history that's not very good. But when you listen to the non-native history, they say Malcolm Clark went all the way up to Browning, and he bought horses from Owl Child. And when he got them down to Helena, they were basically canners. They were no good horses. He got ripped off. So he went back up there and he beat up Owl Child in front of all the Blackfeet and shamed him. So Owl Child went down and gunned him down. That's not the true story. That's what non-native history will tell you, though. But anyways, that's who my grandpa was, Owl Child. And he wasn't a perfect man or anything. And they had convinced him, later on in his life to settle down, build a house and ranch and, things like that. They were trying to change the way natives behaved, keeping them on the res, taking away all the buffalo, making them live off rations, things like that. Well, he stayed right there by the lake. And one day, as he was outside, and he had just bought this hat. He was out near his corrals by the lake, and that old man, that Okitapi, the water people. There's an old man in that lake. There's an old man spirit in that lake. Well, he always sends his boy out to, talk to people if he wants to talk to them outside the lake, outside of the water. And he had sent that little boy out, that little boy spirit, and that boy come out, and he seen Owl Child standing there, and he walked up to Owl Child, and he says, that old man in that lake likes your hat. He said, if you give it to him, he said he'll protect your family, and he'll take care of you guys out here. He'll take pity on you, and you always have good luck, and happiness and health and all that. He said, he just wants your hat. He really likes your hat. And Owl Child told that little boy, he says, no, I just bought this hat. I don't want to give it up. No, I don't care. And that little boy said, are you sure? He said, yeah, no, I want to keep my hat. I don't want to give it away for anything. He said, well, all right. That little boy went back into that water and just told that old man. Well, sometime later, Owl Child had butchered one of his cows, and he had that hide hanging on his corral. And again, that little boy comes out. And he says, that old man, he likes your hide. And he wants to have it. He wants you to give it to him. And he says, no, I'm going to use this hide. He said, I don't want to give it away. Well, that little boy again asked him, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I'm keeping this. I don't care. I don't care what he wants. He says, well, all right. And he goes back in there. Well, Owl Child, my father-in-law was telling me this. He said, he lost a wife. He lost kids. They all drowned in that lake.
Oh.
A bunch of tragedy befell them. Well, he was coming from that place I mentioned, Blacktail, just to the south of there. And he had a bunch of logs. He must have been building a new house or something, or corrals, whatever. He had a bunch of logs on a wagon, and he was traveling back. Well, something in those logs, must have been one of those braces that hold it up, broke. And they all fell out and they crushed him near that lake. That's how my grandpa died there.
Wow.
But, all because he was too stingy, didn't want to give to those spirits that were there. I mean, that's something that we all do, right? We all give to them when they ask. There's very few of us that don't, because there are times that they ask, or even if they do something for you, you give back. Usually it's like tobacco or something, right? And there's so many of them sweetuppies that we don't even think about them. Like a lot of us people don't. But, in the old Blackfeet way, everything that come from the water was holy because the water itself was holy. Like it gives life to everything. So the old Blackfeet way, they never ate fish or, they left all of the water creatures alone pretty much. They never really bothered around them too much, because they had a lot of respect for them. But, So to kind of illustrate that, recently at this past Sundance we was at, I took my kids swimming, near where we had the Okan, and there was this bend up in the river, when we got there, and I went up and prayed to them, asked them to watch over us. We're just gonna swim a little bit. It's really hot out. We appreciate you, just talking like that. Well, we've been hearing that there was some bears kind of around up and down that creek. So I went up around that bend, and where we pulled up, we made a lot of noise. I wasn't too worried about anything there, but I walked up, and I had these dogs with me, and after I got done talking to them, I took out my pistol and I shot a couple of times just to scare anything away. Well, it scared my daughter's dog away.
Oh no!
She took off, and we didn't know where she was at. We were swimming, and finally I thought, "Hey, where's your dog at?" I said, "I don't know." And one of my little nieces spoke up. "Oh, I seen her run toward that house. She ran in that brush toward that house over there." Well, we don't see her, so I start looking around for her. Couldn't find her. We was only there for about an hour and a half or so. Right before sundown, that's when we had time. We had like this little 2-hour window that we could take off because you're busy there. Well, we head back to camp, and that dog's not there. My wife was thinking, well, she should probably run back down to that camp. And hope so. I don't know where she's at. Anyway, she wasn't there, and my daughter was trying to go to town. She was trying to head in. She says, "We're gonna go and get something to eat." She had one of her friends with her and her boyfriend, and I said, "Yeah, we're gonna go in and get something to eat." I said, "Well, what about your dog?" And just kind of dawned on her, like, my dog, And I
Yeah.
said, if that was my dog, I'd say to heck with that food. I'd
Yeah.
go find my dog. I'd go walk that wood line or something.
Yep.
And so she started thinking about it, and she said, "Well, it's gonna get dark." I said, "Yeah, it's gonna." I said, "Well, here, take this flashlight." And I said, "Me and my dog and my boy ended up following us too, my 16-year-old." I said, "We'll walk with you." It was just her and her boyfriend. They took off walking, and we get so far, and we see a dog that looks like hers, but it wasn't. And it kind of got her hopes up, and then she was kind of really getting sad.
Hmm.
And I walked up next to her, and I said, I really don't want to mention what kind of spirit helps her. That's kind of personal, but there's a spirit that helps her. And I told her, well, we'll ask your helper to help us find your dog. And so she goes up, kind of by herself and talks to her helper. And it wasn't even long after that she joined back with us. Jeez, her dog come
Oh,
bouncing over that hill. So,
good. I
yeah,
was like,
so
not the dog.
yeah, the dog comes as soon as she asks for help. That dog come up and
Nice.
anyways, we get back to camp. She's happy with her dog and everything, and I told her, because she's 18, but she's new to a lot of this, so how to act and how to
Hmm.
conduct yourself around them. I said, now you go out back there somewhere, go out by yourself and put some tobacco out for that spirit. Thank you for helping her. And so she did. So she's learning those ways and how to do that, and how to appreciate them and show thanks. But there was other stories I was hearing at the Okan. I really can't talk too much about that Sundance, but I'll keep it in really general terms.
Yeah,
So
whatever you can share. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a group of people that are part of the Sundance that are really holy. They're the ones that sacrifice the most for us, during that ceremony. And one of these people came out and was talking about, when I say come out, I'm talking about not into the camp. They were in the camp, but they come at us somewhere, and they were talking to us one night or one evening, and she was telling me, she said, it was really tough in there because these people need to fast for 4 days. They don't get water or food. And where she was at inside of there, they said they brought a thermometer in one day. It was like 113 degrees in there.
Oh.
And they got to stay in there. So they're really, really sacrificing for us, right? And anyways, when it was all said and done, she come out that last day, and she was talking to me. And she said, I was really suffered in there. And she said, at one point, the Sweetapis came, and they were talking to me. And, the water spirits, they come, and she says, I was asking them, can you take pity on me? Can you get me cooled off? It's really hot, And she was talking to them. They said, yeah, we'll help you. And she says, when you feed us fruit. We really like fruit. People don't really feed us fruit much.
Hmm.
She says, but feed us that. When you offer food to us, offer us fruit. And she's seen one of them. And one of them looked like an otter, like a baby otter. And it was laying there, and it was just eating a green grape.
Oh,
They were
I
saying,
love
yeah,
otters.
they feed us fruit, And so anyways, those water spirits they're all in that Four-Horn Lake. And
Hmm.
my wife's grandma, she's 102 years old.
Wow.
She was talking one day, and she was saying, she says, the last time I remember really seeing water dogs down there, that's a type of sweet She says, it was out in the 40s. said they used to really be common. We would see them all the time down there, those water dogs. And she says, but that's the last time I remember seeing them or hearing a lot about them. She said, I'm about 46 or so. She says, it was a long time ago. But one day my father-in-law was down there and he was working around, their cattle ranchers. He was working, doing something down there. I don't know if he was tagging calves or working on fence, something. And it was him and one of his partners. They were down there, and they seen this dead cow that was floating toward the north side. That's sort of like kind of like the wind blows it stuff toward the north there, and it was floating. There's some reeds on that one side of it, and it was kind of floating in that stuff. And anyways, they were looking at it, and they just, oh, look at that big cow, bloated, flat. And they went back to work, and all of a sudden they looked up, hey, where'd it go? They were looking around for it, and they couldn't see it. There wasn't no cow. And so they knew right then and there that they had seen one of those sweet puppies, a water dog. So kind of how they look. They're big, black, But anyways, that was the last time he said he's seen one in there, and he says he hasn't seen them since. But I don't know how to take that. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that not enough people are paying attention to them, or?
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Maybe
they're not seeing those types of spirits there as much anymore. But one time he was out there and he was telling me. He said, I don't know why he did it, but he put out an offering to them. And he made a little raft out of things he could just find on the side of the lake. Sticks and something grass, wrap around that raft. He put food on it and he pushed it out into that lake, and it was a calm day. That food went out so far, then all of a sudden he sees like the water kind of come up a little bit and just drag it down. It was his offering that he made to it, and he watched him take it. But I mean, they're there, and people don't realize that they're not only just in that lake, but every river, every mud puddle after a storm. They're in everything. The water spirits are everywhere. And if you really think about it, we don't give them enough, attention or thanks.
Yeah.
Ourselves were made of a lot of water. And then water is the main thing on the earth. There's so much of it. And what do we do with it? We pollute it. We use it for, my brother says, we just pee and we poop in it. He says, we don't show it respect these days. We don't.
Yeah.
The data centers and all that stuff, they're just constant pollution. I almost wonder if that's why a lot of these spirits ain't coming around as much as they used to in the water. But
I would believe it.
Another type of water story was when I was younger. My grandpa and them, they told us, hey, don't go down to the river. This isn't Two Medicine. He says, don't go down there. He says, there's something in that water. Something bad got in there. There's a bad spirit down in there. You kids stay away from it. And so I remember hearing that, but I always went to the creek. I was there every day. That was my playground, and I didn't want to stay away from it. So I did for a week. And he told me to stay away from it until one of my uncles was going to come down. He was a holy man. He was going to come down and bless that water, try to make it right. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't stay away from there. And finally I walked down and I had a can of snuff. Hawkins snuff. I remember that, the green can. It was like a wintergreen smell to it. Mm-hmm. And that's the tobacco I had. So I walked down there and I was really nervous. I was looking up and down that creek. Finally, I took some out and I started praying, to those spirits, and I put it in that water. And every time I'd cross it, I would do that. I would pray to them and I'd offer them some of it, and I'd keep walking. Well, I had to cross that creek about 4 times until I got to where this trail was. Because my idea was to go down to this green hole we always swam at and then walk up on top out of the floodplain. These hills kind of go up a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's where my cousin and them were staying. And my idea was to walk down and get her and bring her swimming and show her that green hole. She hadn't seen it yet. The rivers change every year, so this was a new green hole. Geez, it was a good one. And so I go down, and everything was okay. I get up to that house, and she was the only one home. And I said, "Hey, you want to come with me?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "There's a good green hole just right down here." I said, "One of those banks that they make up on an irrigation canal, it rolled off of there, and it's just basically wire, like a fence, like those big squares of wire, and they have square. Anyways, that's how it looked, and it
Like
was
chicken
all wrapped.
fencing.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah, yeah.
wrapping up these rocks.
Mhm.
That was their fake bank that they made, but it must have washed out, and then it just rolled down, and it landed in that river. And so when the water went over, it just dug out a green hole.
Oh,
But it was
wow.
kind of laying halfway in there. It ended, but it was laying like I remember at a slant, because you could walk up it and get out of the water. But right where it went, oh, that was a nice green hole right there. And that's where I was taking her. Well, we go down there, and I said, "Look, this is how we do it." And I walked down that little bank, and it's about up to your hips, maybe, and you can dive off into that green hole. I mean, you could stand on bottom, and your hand wouldn't even go up out of the water.
Oh.
It was really deep. It was just green and clear. You could see the bottom of the rocks and everything. It was really nice.
Hmm.
And so it was a hot day, and I took her down there, and I showed her how we did that. And then I swam out, and I come back up, and I got on top of that bank, and I walked back down those rocks. And I said, "Now you try it." And she said, "All right." And so she jumped in. And I could see her smiling when she was coming up. She was smiling, and her eyes were open. She was looking at me. The sun was kind of behind my head. I could see her face clear. All of a sudden, because I was reaching for her hand, and all of a sudden her hand stopped, and it started going down. And
Oh.
this look on her face, and I could see the bubbles come out, and she starts screaming.
Oh.
And I reached down as fast as I could, because I thought maybe she got snagged up on something, and she might
Yeah.
have been getting cut by that wire or something. So I reached down and I grabbed her, and I had to kind of pull. It almost pulled me in. I
Hmm.
barely had enough strength and balance to get her up, and I did get her up, and she come out still screaming. She said, "Something grabbed me, something grabbed me." And I walked with her. I walked her to the side, and we sat there, and on her left ankle there was a handprint, like a man-sized handprint. You could
Oh.
just see it was red, and something grabbed her and was trying to pull her under. And so,
Hmm.
anyways, we left. I walked her back home, and I remember when I got home, I didn't walk the creek. I didn't walk the creek. Instead, I went on the road up and around on the land. And I got home, and geez, I didn't want to tell my grandpa. I didn't tell any of them what happened down there, because I would have gotten in trouble for going down there when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because there's that balance in the universe. Sometimes there is good things, and sometimes there's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what happened or why this happened here. Why this bad spirit was in that water, and I don't know.
Hmm.
But my elders knew about it, and we were warned, but I didn't listen. And that was
Yeah.
one of the experiences that I unfortunately had to go through with my cousin to learn how to listen. Yeah, but
Sometimes people are stubborn and don't listen until
yeah,
something happens.
yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
you mess around long enough, you'll find out.
Yeah.
So
Does your
yeah,
cousin does she like water now since then, or?
well, she does. She lives in Washington State now
Mhm.
as an adult, and we've talked about this story. And I remember when I first brought it up, because I remember it clear. I remember it. I remember how it smelled down there.
Mm.
And I asked her, I said, "Do you remember that time we went swimming when we was kids? I come up to your house and got you?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what do you remember?" She says, "Man, after you showed me how to jump in there, something grabbed me and tried to pull me under." I said, "Yeah, yeah." And I remember it being on her left ankle. And I said, "Well, where did it grab you?" She says, "You remember it on my left ankle, that big old handprint like a man?" I said, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember it all too. Yeah." So anyways, that was just one of the things to, I guess, validate my memory. And it
Yeah.
was on. Yeah, I asked her about it. And, you know, today she's a really humble person, I guess. Things. She's a good person, but many things come to her too, like spiritually. So
Good things.
Yeah, good things. And you
Good.
gotta
Good.
wonder, like, did that bad know she was gonna go on to do good things?
Maybe.
And maybe it was trying to stop it. There's a lot to think about with that, but
I'm
I
just
wonder.
thinking about because if my feet can't touch bottom in the water, I freak out. Like I like water, but I don't like water at the same time. So just hearing you tell that story, it's just like inside, I'm just like no, 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 no. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
no,
freak me out.
it was a good time. I mean, all of us that grew up out in the country along those rivers,
Hmm.
there'd be Badger Creek to Med, wherever we grew up, we're all swimmers. And you learn things after a while. Like this is not paranormal or anything, but the river is really strong. There's a big current.
Mm,
Just dive to the bottom and let your belly slide on the rocks. Gee, there's almost no current down there. And you could cross
really?
the
That's cool.
river like that, yeah.
Huh.
And go straight across it, or even swim up it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just let your belly go on the bottom and just paddle like normal. Yeah, you'll get
Nope.
across it.
Nope.
Yeah. But so back to Forehorn, there was something else I was thinking about with Forehorn. There's a place down there. Geez, would it be above my grandpa's old place? And kind of like to the north of there on those ridges. There's a part where it kind of goes like this, those hills.
Mhm.
It's almost like something pushed up over time. But right there, you'll see these old teepee rings. They're still on that part that's, like that. So at one time it was flat, and over time it pushed. But those teepee rings are so old, they're small. So that means they were there before the horse was reintroduced.
Okay.
So we call those the dog days. And those teepees are from the dog days. That's when we used the dogs to haul stuff for us.
Yeah.
But the horses came back to the Blackfeet, I want to say, in the 1700s at some point. I don't know what, maybe 1750s. I don't know. That's when they were reintroduced. But before that, there was those little small lodges. They couldn't carry the big ones with those dogs.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, this is something that I always think about. So when the first fur trader came, the first non-native, not white man came to St. Mary's area. There's a St. Mary. It's in the Glacier National Park, St. Mary's area. That was all Blackfeet land, and it was territory. I mean, and it was protected. Like we never let anybody in there. So the first one that we let in that wasn't even native at all was the son of a fur trader. And I can't remember which fur trading company that was. Was it Hudson Bay? I don't remember.
Mhm.
But that boy was sent as a way to build relations with the Blackfeet. I remember the story. He come up the Mississippi on a steamboat, and then he traveled west, and he was kind of up in Canada, just right above St. Mary's Lake, somewhere's up in there. And they sent him with the Blackfeet. There was Blackfeet camped outside of that fort, and when he walked in, there was the main guy of that fort, whoever he was, the manager or whatever. But this kid come from the east, and his dad sent him out to build relations, and I think he was about 18 or so. Well, that man said, "All right, here, yeah, you're gonna go meet so and so, and he's camped here, but make sure you wear this thing on you. It's like a sash. So make sure you wear this, because look at all these Blackfeet that are around here. That's what they wear. If you walk over there, those dogs, they're not gonna know you. They're not gonna recognize you, and they'll attack you. So wear this so those dogs don't bother you."
Mhm.
And so he put on that article of clothing, and he walks out, and he's asking around, and he finally finds that guy's camp. And I can't remember the Blackfeet it was either. But when he walked in his lodge, he was waiting for him. That old chief was waiting for him, and he had raised two bears, two cubs, and they
Oh,
were sitting beside him, but they were big, big black bears, and they were each sitting beside him. And boy, that kid walks in and he stands inside of his lodge, and there's two bears looking at him along with that chief.
wow.
That must have been pretty damn intimidating. But
Kidding.
uh, what I was thinking about with that, because that boy was describing too those dogs that were really big, big. Those are the old dog days dogs. They were really big. Well, they say all dogs descended from the domesticated dogs descended from the wolf. That's not how our history takes it. That's not what our history says. And so, way, way long time ago, it had to be, geez, 12,000 plus years ago, long time ago.
A few moons.
Yeah. We were given this medicine by all the animals. They all gave a blessing. They gave us control of their life force, kind of like a treaty of sorts, where we won't harm them. There's certain ones that we won't harm, and the animals did this because they were ensuring that their people would survive too, and the humans wouldn't wipe them out. Kind of like a treaty.
Yeah.
So they give us control of their life force, and anyways, during that time, it's a whole story of how it happened. But in the end, this is kind of the part I'm alluding to. They were sitting in this big lodge, and all those spirits, those animal spirits, were in there. And there was an old man, an old woman sitting in the back. And this story comes from the Kaina, the blood band of our tribe. Anyways, sitting there, that man was to ask. His name was Whitegrass. He was to ask every animal that was in there, to give something. And finally, all of those animals gave something, and he was going to give that white beaver pup back to those beavers. Because that old man sitting in the back told him, that's how he should do this. That's how he should go about this. And finally, he didn't know that old man was sitting back there that came to him to help him. Here they had hides covering him, that man and that woman. And he says, well, what about them two sitting back there? They never gave anything yet. And that old man took his hide off, and so did that woman. And he looked back to the door of the lodge, and he motioned the person in. There was a young man. He come in, and he had two big dogs. And he said, I'm the son. So I'm the creator, and this is my wife, and that's my son right there, the morning star. And my gift to you is these dogs. They'll protect you, and they'll move all your stuff for you, and that's my gift. My dogs are buffalo. Those are my dogs, but these are the dogs I'm giving to you. And they said they didn't resemble the wolf. They weren't like the wolf at all. Mm-hmm. They were different. And so in our way, we got dogs by, how would I say it, like a miraculous gift. That's how we got them. And so even today, there's a lot of people, on the reservations, not just ours, many that
in
don't
Canada
tie
too.
up they don't tie up their dogs.
Yep.
Dogs roam free.
Yep.
And a lot of this comes from these old stories like that, where there's a lot of respect for them. But at the same time, the dogs are neglected too. You'll see a neglected res dog, and but most of them are taken care of. But that does happen, and there's quite a few people out there that don't even believe in spade and neutering their dogs.
I know.
So but that was making me think about that, because that's all tied in the four-horn, those little tiny teepee rings and those dogs, and how we got them. So I thought I'd share that part of it too. But
I'm glad you did, yeah.
So let's go back to four-horn and kind of some of the more modern type stories. So my mother was out there one time, and this was in the winter, and they were fishing. They were ice fishing, and it was just her and her husband, my stepdad, and they were sitting in a car because it was too cold, but they were facing the lake, and they were watching their poles. Had little bells on there so they could see if something was biting. And she said there was people across the lake too, and they were all sitting there, fishing, kind of doing the same thing. But she says all of a sudden the ice over the lake, she says underneath it, it's just like a whole light bulb turned on. There's light under the whole lake. It lit up. She could see it through the ice, the whole thing. And she said it scared them so bad they ran and grabbed their poles. They didn't even reel them in. They just ran with them, threw them in, and drove off. So those other people too were kind of freaked out by it as well. And see, about it would be to the south and to the west. There's strange things out there. My brother was driving. Somebody come from in the community of Hart Butte. You go down a ways and you'll hit the lake, right? So you'd be heading north. Anyways, just over that ridge there's the road. Over the ridge is the lake. So somewhere's in that area, he said this girl was asking for a ride, and down to Oil Agency where that turnoff is to it. They lived right over there. And so they were driving. He said, yeah, we'll give you a ride. His wife told him, yeah, this is my cousin. Give her a ride down there. She's stranded up here. Her ride left or something like that. And he said, all right. And my brother-in-law jumped in with my little brother, and they went and they brought her down. Well, he said they get to that part, and they're looking just on the other side. They can see on top of that ridge, he said there was a red light. And it was big. It was big, like when the moon's out and it's near full moon. He says it was about half the size of the moon, but round. He says it was just sitting on top of that ridge, red light. He said we slowed down and was really looking at it. Did you guys see that? Yeah. So it's about a 15-minute drive down, 15-minute drive back. They just stared at it and like, I don't know what that is, but they kept driving, and they drop her off and they come back. And by the time they get back, his wife's mad at him. He says, where were you guys? I bet you guys were out drinking. You better not be drinking. Come here, let me smell your breath. What are you talking about? We just dropped her off and came back,
Yeah.
Why are you mad? You guys been gone 2 hours. What's wrong with you? And all they seen was that red light, but they lost time somewhere in there.
Wow.
It should have been only gone a half hour, but she was accusing him of being gone 2 hours. Yeah.
Do you think maybe they lost track of time just watching it, or
No.
yeah, I didn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He said all we did was slow down and look at it a little bit, like, geez, that's weird, and keep driving. He said even on the way back we kind of slowed down and looked for it, but it was gone. So we just drove home, he says, and then we got in trouble. He says, I don't know why. He goes,
Yeah.
We lost time.
We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of things like that, right? And so when my wife was really small too, she was about 3 years old, and she was just speaking. She could speak early when she was younger, and no adult concepts, but she could speak. She didn't have that thoughts like adults or anything. But her mom and dad they went out there for a drive, and they were coming back over that ridge, back over to the ranch, and it got dark on them. And it was just about sundown, and their truck broke down right there in a place we called Dead Dog Flat.
Oh, no.
The Dead Dog Flat, because there was a bunch of wild dogs out there that were getting after those cows, and they put them down out there. So Dead Dog Flat. And those wild dogs, they no good. I don't really have a lot of pity for them. They're dangerous. They almost killed me when I was young. My sister.
No way.
Yeah, but anyways, that place is where that flat was where they were at, and they were just coming over that hill and below there where they stalled, and her dad gets out and he says, well, we'll walk over. I'll get us another vehicle and come get you guys, but I don't want you guys walking, I don't want this baby out there walking with us this late, so just wait here and I'll be back. Well, she was sitting there in that truck. She had her window rolled down so she could hear if he was coming, and I guess my wife was kind of in her lap, and all of a sudden my mother-in-law, if I remember the story right, she said she heard something whisper in her ear, and I don't know what it said, but anyways, my wife, she started screaming, and she just jumped down in that wheel well, and it was looking up toward that window, and was just freaking out, just afraid. Anyways, my mother-in-law didn't know what to do. She just rolls that window window up and jumps over and tries to start the truck, and it won't start. She said just then she's seen headlights coming. And she was just waiting, and, my wife was freaking out, still crying, like just irate, really afraid, like deathly afraid. And so he pulls up and she starts telling him, just go, just get us out of here. Let's get back to the house. Let's go. And so they start going, and so, what happened? And I don't know. She's scared of something out there, and she was just getting sick, fever and everything. She was getting sick, and she was telling him, I saw a man out there. I saw a man. And so they get to that house, and that old guy, he says, what's wrong? And she told us she's seen something out there at that lake, just on the other side of the ridge. And she's getting sick now. And they all knew there was a bad spirit that she saw, because they can make you sick like that if they're really bad. And so he bring her in my room, and he starts smudging and praying. And he was a Catholic too. He followed both ways, and Blackfeet Catholic way. So he did his rosary prayers too, and the Indian way too. And anyways, he was asking her, well, what did you see? And she said it was a man that was he was all painted from head to toe. And I want to say he was painted black, but he had like different white designs, like a lightning bolt or something on him like that. And so whatever that was, it really made her sick that night. But after he prayed and did all these, spiritual cleansing for her, she come out of it. So I mean, not only are there, like I said, not only are there good things there are negative things there as well. But there's this one mysterious place that I have yet to, look at. I mean, I've seen it from afar, but I never drove over there. So just south of the lake, here's a place we call Hole in the Wall. And it's just this big hole in the ground. There ain't no wall there. It's just a hole in the ground. But it's called Hole in the Wall. And what's interesting about this was just over that place called Rustler's Corral. Oh, my phone's dying. Place called Rustler's Corral. These here, hang on. Let me
sure
plug it in real quick.
We just have a few minutes left, anyways. But
yeah. Hey, clown. There we go. So anyway, just right over down south of there, that place, that Hole in the Wall. Over that, there's like a hill behind it, and there's a bunch of cliffs. And Charlie Russell had went over there at one point. He was there, and he carved into the rocks like a little picture. I guess it's fading, but it's still around there. It's kind of an interesting place. But anyways, my brother-in-law was telling me this story about some guy. He was a non-native. He went out to that lake. Out to Hole in the Wall, and I guess he rappelled down in there, the rope. As my brother-in-law was saying, no, he says, when we went there, we covered it up because we don't want our cows falling in there. He says, but before we did, I threw a rock about this big. He said, I threw it down there. I just kept hearing it hit other rocks. He says, and I didn't hear it drop. I didn't hear it land. It just faded. He says, it was deep. Whatever it is, it's deep. It was far. Well, this non-native guy, I guess, wanted to kind of explore it, so he rappels down with the rope, and geez, I guess by the time he come back up, he was just scared, like freaking out, scared. And then, what's wrong? What did you see? And he says, I don't know. He says, but that grasshopper or that cricket or whatever it was that was down there was the size of a dog. So I don't know what's in there. I really don't. It's one of those mysterious things that I have yet to kind of explore. I don't know how much I'd explore it. I'd go look. I don't know if I'd go down in there.
Did he say how deep it was?
No, he said he just come back up once he seen that thing. I don't even think he reached the bottom of it.
Yeah. I'd probably do the same thing if I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know, but he had lights. He could see. must have had a headlamp or something. That
Hmm.
those fine details. I didn't ask my brother, but
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, but he had to have seen, like, he had to have had light if he's seen it.
Hmm.
But anyways, that those are some of the stories of Forehorn Lake. There's many, many more about this place, but that's a handful that I can recall off the top of my head.
Wow.
Mhm.
Fascinating place.
Yeah, it really is.
No kidding.
Powerful place.
Yeah.
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 But
With
all of these
the
places that have water are like that. All these lakes have power like that.
mhm.
If you think about it, Alaska's got what? Is that something like some crazy 3 million lakes or something like
Yeah,
that?
they've got a lot. I don't know how many, but there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of power
Good
in that.
grief.
A lot
Yeah.
of spirits around there. Yeah.
Well, I remember, I can't remember if I told you, but I know I told Dawn about this when I was a teenager, still living with my parents. I had this old mirror. The plastic part had long gone, and I just had the actual mirror, and I had it propped up on my nightstand, and I was getting ready to go out. So I was fixing my hair and makeup and all that, and all of a sudden I look in the mirror, and I see this traditional Native man. He's got long hair. He's got the skins, and he's by a body of water. I don't know if it's a river or a lake or whatever it was, but he saw me in the river and I saw him in my mirror, and we both went like this and looked at each other as to say, what is going on? So I don't know if that was me in a past life, if a mirror and the body of water happened to open something up and we're able to see each other. But once I finally realized what I was looking at, I wanted to ask questions and it was gone. It's like, who are you? Like, what? And it's never happened ever since. So mirrors and bodies of water, yeah, they're very powerful for a lot of reasons.
You've probably seen one of those Suitapi, or that would be an Okitapi, otter people.
Yeah.
You've probably seen one because they're there, and not everybody gets to see them. So
Hmm.
that tells me you don't have a lot of doubt when it comes to the spirit world. Because if you have a
Yeah.
lot of doubt, this cuts that off. You
Yeah.
don't get to see it.
Yeah, but it was intriguing. I was just like, wow, and I've never forgotten that. I'm 59 now, and this happened. I was in my teens, and I've never forgotten it. I've always wondered what just happened. Who was that man? And it was. I had a feeling he was a medicine man. So other than that, it's just an instinct that I had about him. But it was really neat how we both kind of went like this. Like I'm doing that in my mirror and he's doing that in the body of water. He's just on the edge. I don't know if he was getting a drink or washing his face or what it was, but he saw me and I saw him. And it's just like, okay, this is really cool. And then it was gone. It's like,
Dang, we should put some tobacco out for him.
yeah. And I didn't even know to do that at that time. So if ever it happens again, maybe I'll do that.
That ain't too late. Go out, put some tobacco out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought of that, although it's in a different province now, but I could probably do that and think of him.
He reached out from, if you think about it, from way back when.
Yeah.
There's no distance or time for those spirits. You could call on them anytime, thank them anytime. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I never even thought of that. I think I'll do that. Maybe I'll get to see him again.
Maybe you'll have a dream about him or something.
That would be cool. If that happens, I'll let you know.
All righty.
Yeah. Well, my friend, we are at the end. Could you just briefly tell us about your show and where they can find you and your show?
Yeah, so I'm the host of a podcast called Lodge Tales, and it's a platform reserved for just Native Americans, and a lot of people from my tribe have come on and told stories. And
nice.
Anyways, just all these indigenous folks, it's only for us. It's our platform, I like to say. So if you're interested in that, you could find it on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get podcasts. But the Patreon is where there's members-only episodes. That's where I kind of save the more juicy episodes, the more in-depth and really, I think, interesting. They're all interesting stories, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
some of these stories that's how I like to pay back the Patreons that support my podcast. Like, man, I'll give you guys some that not everybody gets. And it's behind that paywall just to keep the lights on, just to keep the subscriptions going that you need. It costs money to do it. So
it does.
That's all that's for, and it's $5 a month. Binge all the episodes, cancel it, do it again.
Well, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, you don't have to stay subscribed forever.
Yeah.
I'm not in it for the money.
No, you mean stay subscribed forever?
No. I'm not really. It's because the podcast you'll see when you get there. It's more of it's more. How would I say? It's bigger than me. And these are our stories. The people, all the guests. This is all of our thing. So it means more to save the stories for future generations.
Exactly.
And there's a small cost of that. So I don't need to be a millionaire. It's not the whole goal here, but there is a small cost incurred, and I try to overcome that with the members only episode. So if you're interested, Lodge Tales.
Yeah.
The podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I look forward to having you on again for another Beyond the Firelight segment. Don't know when that's going to be yet, folks, but this is our second installment. So second of many more, I hope.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But also look for the podcast on Spectre Vision Radio. That's my network. I always try to plug that in as well.
Yeah. Okay.
First go there, then jump to Patreon.
Yeah.
If you're interested in more. Okay.
Then you can get some extras.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang tight. If you have a couple of minutes, we'll chat after I say farewell to the audience.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, folks, I can't believe an hour goes by so fast. So a huge thank you to my special guest, Rodney Williamson, and to you, my wonderful haunted hearts, for tuning in. I also want to thank UPRN 107.7 New Orleans, 105.3 the Gulf Coast for carrying the show. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. It really does mean the world to me, and it just helps support the show, And if you'd like to be on the show, have a guest or topic idea, just want to say hello, drop me an email at 103. Good grief. No, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd also love to hear from what country are you listening from. So until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. Much love to you all.